Hi, this is Randle here in Texas for No Market Media. I'd like to take a little bit of time today to do some further investigation and thoughts on Star Trek Picard. In our previous kind of spoilers review, Matt and I discussed a lot of things, but if there's anything that Matt and I want to establish with our channel is that we don't try and go for the spectacular, we don't try and nitpick the crap out of everything, but in some cases, like in our Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker hour-long discussion, it just can't be helped. And for me, Star Trek Picard is one of those cases. So, like my good friend Samuel Jackson once said,
Hold on to your butts.
okay, that's not true. Samuel Jackson and I are not good friends. I'd like to think that if we met each other that we would be, though. Now, one of the things that I really want to get across right away is that I'm not just going to sit here and hate on Star Trek Picard. There's a lot of good things in the series, and in fact, one of the things that I noted in our review together was that there's more to like than there is to dislike, unless you get into the nitpicky things. So I want to lay out some of the things that I thought were actually really nice, like little Star Trek things that were thrown in there, starting with the continuation of the emergency holographic systems. Even though it's in complete juxtaposition to the main storyline, I do think it's interesting that on the La Serena, Rios has all of these emergency holograms. He's got one for navigation, he's got one for engineering, he's got an emergency medical hologram, which makes sense. Most of the time, it's just him and his ship, and he's like ferrying people or cargo or something like that. So it's a good thing. But like from a Star Trek perspective, it's just that continuation of the Star Trek Voyager EMH program. This does have a big asterisk next to it, though, because a large part of Picard is talking about synthetic life, and they're very keen to use the word synthetic, because if they said, oh, we're going to ban all artificial intelligence, well, there go all of your emergency holographic projections. Because really, the Doctor in Voyager and most of the holographic projections in this series they're artificial intelligence. They are practically themselves. Yeah, they're not capable of doing what an android a flesh and blood android could do from a like go anywhere perspective. They do need holographic emitters, but I still think it's worth noting that that's a continuation of that program, and it's seen more applications than just medical applications. So that's good. I also like, so in DS9, there's a very classic episode, The Visitor. And if you haven't seen it, shame on you, family, shame on your cow, because it's amazing standalone episode where it progresses through time, and you get to a point right about the same time or a little bit beyond Star Trek Picard where it takes place, and they're on the Defiant, but it's the future, so we're like 30 years in the future from DS9, give or take, and the characters mention, well, I don't even remember the last time I used a 2D control panel, and in this, especially on the La Serena, you see 3D projection control panels, which is obviously just nice to look at. It's a lot nicer to look at than the older renditions of how Star Trek used to do, so it's a visual uptick. But from a nitpicking standpoint, from a fan standpoint, I like it. I like, okay, that's a logical progression. I didn't like them at all in Discovery, because I understood the need to update the look, but in Picard they make sense because they are referenced as being a thing that happens. It's kind of like with the communicator, the badge. It's the same future badge that you see in several episodes of TNG and Voyager. So they're like, okay, that's the badge that we're going with for this new show, for the Starfleet insignia. I really liked that. It's a good, we've seen this before, let's keep that consistency. That's awesome. And one thing that I really like that is kind of opposite of that is the retcon of the Discovery Klingons. In this, the Batleth in Picard's personal vault is just a normal Batleth from TNG, which makes sense. The knives are just normal knives that you would have seen in TNG from the Klingon and Romulan perspective. In fact, the Romulan knives bear a really, really striking resemblance to what you see in Star Trek Nemesis's Sinjan with the Riemann knives and stuff. So that all makes really good, consistent sense. It's just, I was happy to see in the little interlude they have a little thing of here's Captain Picard standing next to some Klingons, and it's just a still from TNG, but it's a still of the TNG Klingons, and with Worf in there, and it's just the Klingons that you remember from that show. The Discovery Klingons went overboard. It was crazy. They redesigned everything for no reason. So it was actually really nice to see in Picard that they decided, all right, let's keep everything back to the way that we liked it. I'm happy with that. No more stupid, ugly, whatever bat'leth designs from Discovery. Hopefully we never see those again. But let me get into some of the things that just don't make sense. And this is getting nitpicky, like I mentioned in our previous review and earlier in this discussion. I like a lot of the things that were done with Star Trek Picard. I like it more than I dislike it. But some of these things just can't be explained away. I mean, in no particular order. It takes them 3 episodes to get into this. You're not even in space on the La Serena for 3 episodes. And even then, you still have to go pick up your crew. You haven't even finished collecting your crew for 4 episodes. And then 709 finally shows up in whatever, episode 5 or 6 or something. It's nuts. It's ridiculous. The pace at the beginning of this was unnecessary. They wasted so much time getting into the bulk of the story, and then they rushed everything at the end. And I'm just like, okay, that's great, fine, thanks a lot. And then speaking of the end and how things are rushed, what happens to the Romulan Narek? He's like one of the main antagonists of the series. And no, I do not want to hear an off-screen explanation for it. I don't want to know that Michael Chabon or Chabon went on and said, well, this is what happened with him. Fuck that. That is stupid. It's no off-screen explanations. Tell me what happened, or else it's not important. Your main bad guy just got off scot-free. Agnes, who had earlier straight up murdered Bruce Maddox, which is another thing I'm going to talk about, she gets off scot-free. What is that? That doesn't make any sense. They're not going to turn her in? Oh, all is forgiven. You saved us at the end. You did the right thing at the end, so you're good now. No! She straight up murdered him. And the EMH program let her. And then later it's just like, oh, the EMH is explaining what happened. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. I'm like, what? No, come on. That doesn't make any sense. The EMH program obviously has to follow her directions as far as like shut down or overrides. Presumably she was given that access. Who knows? It's never really mentioned. But if I'm on the topic of Bruce Maddox, his whole storyline is such a disappointment in this. As good as they did bringing back Riker and 7 of 9 and how they handled those characters and Troy's character, giving them poignant points to do things, Bruce's character is practically an afterthought. And I'm not saying he's super important from a TNG perspective, but he was important in Measure of a Man, and there's a reason they chose his character as an anchor point for the first part of the season. And then it's just like, oh, he's here. No, he's not. He's dead now. Who cares? And the whole thing with him recreating the magic sauce of androids off of one neuron of Commander Data that was floating out after the battle of, the battle between the Enterprise E and the Scimitar. I'm sorry. That's just stupid. That's weak. That's weak writing. And again, as much as I loved the episode or the scene with Data in it at the end and Picard talking about how humans, we have a finite existence and that's what makes us special. Not just humans, just, normal beings, I guess, not androids. like that scene is so heartfelt and so touching, but they could have just been like, oh no, these are from the backups from Data from that were in B4, which they did elaborate a little bit on. They said that he doesn't really remember dying. So the whole neuron thing, built from one single neuron of Data's Panatrosic net, is stupid. It could have just been Bruce Maddox is angry at the Federation for giving up on android technology, synthetic technology. He goes off and works with Dr. Soon's son, who's Alton Soon, played by Brent Spiner. And that would have been fine. That would have been perfectly okay. They just continue the work outside of the guidelines of Starfleet, outside of the Federation. That would have been enough. The whole neuron thing it's A, really stupid bad science, and B, just unnecessary. So please, no, none of that. I'm also super annoyed that at the end of the series, the androids give them the main characters this kind of magic do-everything tool. The La Serena needs a whole replacement unit. No. See, we have this really cool tool that just goes on your hand, and you can just imagine it being fixed, and it just does it. Now, if it had some limitations, that would be okay. Like if it had some physical limitations, like it can only fix, it's for engineering. It's like an engineering tool or something like that. But then later Agnes just uses it, and poof, we have the Picard maneuver on steroids, because why not? That's just fan service. And you get all these shuttles with their own individual warp fields, and it's just like, what? Why? And if you're gonna do that, the very end of the series, why give Picard a flesh and blood android body that makes no sense? You have a magic do-anything tool. Use that to fix his brain and thing, whatever. It's not really an aneurysm. Use that. If you're gonna have it in the story, go all in for it. You already made it make 25 imaginary ships, so come on, it can fix that, right? She's a doctor, and she knew exactly what it was off of an old tricorder reading. She's like, oh, that's not good. Yeah, that's not good. I want to think the tricorder's wrong. Yeah, it's not wrong. Use the magic tool. Fix him. That would have been way better. And then also near the end, in my deluge as I descend down the madness that is some of the things that bug me about Picard, at the end, Riker shows up, and Riker's awesome. That's great, but he shows up with this huge fleet. Who knows how many ships? I don't care. It's in the series. They specify, but he shows up with this fleet of ships, and they're all exactly the same. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And that's just stupid. That doesn't make any sense. So not only are they all the strongest, newest, coolest, fastest, bestest ships that Starfleet's ever put into commission, they have the stupidest bridge design. There's like a shot behind Riker's shoulder looking out, and you're just like, who would work on this bridge? This is terrible. Where's the comm station? Where's the navigation station? I mean, they're just this huge open spot. It's like a theater. It's like an open air theater on this bridge. It's crazy. It's for like board meetings or something. I don't know. But these ships, they're all, I mean, they look okay, but like you don't get a close enough detailed shot of any of them to really care about them. They're obviously, like the Enterprise E, like the Sovereign class, like, newer. They go off of that kind of platform and they go up from there. But this doesn't make any sense with established Star Trek canon. Those ships at the end should have been kind of like I don't want to say hodgepodge, because Starfleet obviously has a significant size fleet out of the Dominion War, but they have a really big history. Admittedly, in previous series it's because of budget, but now that we have that established, they have a big history of their ships lasting a long time. That fleet should have had some, like, Ambassador classes in it, maybe. Definitely Galaxy classes are still kicking around. I mean, the Excelsior class is kicking around well into the Dominion War, which is in the 24th century, and it was designed in the mid to late 23rd century. This is like an 80-year-old vessel that's going toe to toe. you could have varied that fleet up a lot. It would have been great to see some Sovereign class ships in there. But no, it's just one big fleet of one exact kind of ship. And why? Because it's cheaper and it's easier. But with a show like this budget, and this is not something that could be said of Discovery. Discovery looks gorgeous. And the ship designs are good, except for the Klingons. They're terrible. That's completely different. But, you know, like, more thought could have been put into that. That fleet absolutely should have been more varied. And if you're talking about cost, I mean, they already rendered the Enterprise D. It's in the very first episode for a dream sequence. They just render it going through like a nebula or something. And I'm like, you've already done the work. Come on. Throw some Galaxy class ships in at the end. You'll make the fans happier. And who doesn't like that? I mean, admittedly, it's a little bit of fan clickbait kind of stuff, but it also just makes consistency in the Star Trek universe. That would have been super nice. And, you know, the thing is, like, I can go on and on from a nitpick standpoint, but I want to bring it back to my thing at the very beginning. I'm not trying to just point out errors and problems. I'm trying to say there are definitely little things that they could have done better if they had just thought about it just a little bit more. Like, you know, this plot device where it kind of fixes everything, that's a little bit too much. Couldn't Starfleet have just shown up on time, basically, instead of having this thing where Agnes can just throw a whole bunch of 20-some La Serenas out there? You know, like, that would have just made more sense. Instead, they went for the flashy ending. And then you get into some, like, story problems. I don't want to say not necessarily like the way the storyline unfolds, but like narrative decisions that I don't agree with. But just because I don't agree with them, it doesn't mean it's bad. Like, I really don't like how they handled Hugh's death. I loved what they did with Hugh's character. But then they just kill him off. It's just like, whoop, whoop, knife to the throat. Oh, God, he's done. He's done. And they just threw away Bruce Maddox, like I said earlier. It's just like, he's here, he's important. No, he's not here, he's dead. No one cares. Like, a little bit more care could have been had. And it would have been so much more enjoyable. It could have been better. It's still good, and I still think that if you're a Star Trek fan, there's a lot here to like. It's just that if you're a really big Star Trek nerd like me, there's some things in here where you're just like, why did you do that? That doesn't make sense. And I really wish they could have done better on that. But we try not to do these very often where we just ream into something. So make sure if you like other kinds of content that you check out our channel. We have more sedate, less clickbaity reviews of TV shows and movies and flashback reviews. Make sure to give us a like and a subscribe if you want to see some more of this kind of content or our other content. For now, I'm Randall here in Texas. Everyone, have a great day.